Hello, I'm Alexandra Coghlan, Glyndebourne's opera content specialist, and I'm here in Glyndebourne's Figaro Garden at the heart of these gorgeous grounds. With its hidden corners made for conspiring, it's a perfect place for me to introduce Donizetti's Don Pasquale. This exhilarating, energetic show is both a great first-time opera and a brilliant choice for all lovers of comedy. Almost the last opera Donizetti wrote, Don Pasquale was the climax of a glittering career. A comedy about the clash between generations, it's a light-footed, wickedly funny piece whose familiar characters, the pompous old man, the pert young woman, the devoted lover, have their roots in the Italian tradition of commedia dell'arte. Elderly miser Don Pasquale vows to get married and produce an heir so he can cut his nephew Ernesto out of his will. But Ernesto and his beloved Norina set a trap, scheming with Dr. Malatesta to marry Pasquale off to his sister, really Norina in disguise, and make his life such a misery that he'll consent to anything just to get rid of his troublesome wife. Romantic and domestic conflict ensues. Let's find out more from director Mariam Clément. Thank you so much, Mariam, for talking to us. So I think when we think about Donizetti, most people get to know L'Elysée d'Amore first. It's certainly the show we've had at Glyndebourne most recently. How does Don Pasquale compare?
Don Pasquale is another one of those Donizetti comedies. I mean, in many ways, it's if you like Élysée, you will like Don Pasquale. What I like in both, I think, where they're similar, is that it's comedy, and in a way you could think the characters are archetypes, you know, derived from commedia dell'arte archetypes, but they're always more subtle than what you think. They're more fragile. They all have their fragility, their wounds, their tenderness. They're very human, is what I like about them.
I was rewatching it recently and I was struck sort of afresh by this question of the plot of an old man chasing a young woman. Can we still watch that and laugh at it in the same way as Donizetti's audience?
There is space in the piece, you know, there is space for thought, for depth, for subtlety, for reflection. And I think that's true of most of the opera repertoire. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to be doing it. And I think that's what our mission is, not from a moral standpoint, but from an opera lover point of view, is keeping these pieces alive. That doesn't mean modernizing or transposing. It means rereading them and finding their relevance. If you can relate to it throughout the centuries, then it's probably a good sign. And we can relate to these pieces today, definitely.
Described as the most Mozartian of Donizetti's comedies, Don Pasquale marries bel canto's beautiful melodies and show-stopping virtuosity with newly fluid, believable drama. Arias flow in and out of musical conversations with ease, rhythms bend and harmonies dart in unexpected directions, mirroring real life in all its twists and turns. Most striking are the finales. Donizetti shakes off the dead weight of the traditional operatic finale, enormously complex multi-part set pieces that bring each act to an emphatic end, and experiments with simpler, more flexible forms that let the drama speak for itself. The Act 2 finale even goes so far as to exclude the chorus altogether. Refusing to pan out for a wide shot, Donizetti ends instead with a musical close-up, an intimate quartet that keeps the focus tight on the main characters. Bel canto opera is all about dazzling, high-wire feats for its singers, music that challenges them to sing higher, lower, faster, softer, or more sweetly than any rival. There's one particularly memorable example in Don Pasquale. The gullible Pasquale and his scheming friend Malatesta are concealed in the garden, hoping to catch Pasquale's new wife with her lover, or so Pasquale thinks. As the two unfold their rather different plans, the layers of intrigue and deception are gradually exposed in music that works itself up into a frenzy of speed. Words become all but unintelligible in a glorious tangle of plot and music. Each singer vies to outpace the other, And in any good performance, the musical roller coaster is always very close to coming off the rails. The result is one of the most exhilarating, joyful, laugh-out-loud moments in all opera, a rare number that's still regularly encored today. Here to tell us a little bit more about comedy in the Opera House is Chris Addison.
The first thing that you have to have for comedy is an instinct, and that is you either have that or you don't. It sounds like a terribly self-aggrandizing thing to say, that I feel, but there is a truth to it. It is a very musical set of skills, weirdly enough, because rhythm and timing are huge parts of what go into comedy.
How does that translate into an environment in which you bring music into the mix, especially something like opera where pacing and timing is so much out of your control?
Absolutely, it's very, very complicated. One of your jobs as an opera director, I suppose, is to find stuff which is outside the specifics of the libretto and the score, and to add that in. And Marianne Clément is very good at that. And one of the things that she tends to do is that she will take a really minor character or a non-speaking character or non-singing character and give them quite a lot to do. So in Don Pasquale, there is the servant. She's able to sort of do stuff in the background and add to things without kind of drawing focus from the singing. And that's one of the sort of the principal methods by which Marianne tends to put comedy into her productions.
And when it comes to operatic comedy, you know, Donizetti is one of the composers we see most often. We adore his comedies. What is it about his shows that makes us laugh?
The thing about Donizetti is that the roots of his shows, the comedy in his shows, is also the roots of comedy in lots of other things. It's in pantomime, and it's also sort of in some of the tropes of the family sitcom. So it is definitely still around. And one of the things about Donizetti's shows is that it has those very solid roots, I think. With this production of Don Pasquale, you know, one of the things that Marianne has done is to bring out the complexity of the characters, because as she herself talks about, you know, Pasquale, he's sort of the butt of the joke, but at the same time, he just wants to have kids. He's just an old dude who sort of wants to have a family. The first thing he sings about is imagining seeing them grow. Like, there's tremendous pathos in the best and best remembered comedy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making comedy that is funny and bleak. I think it's possible to do more than one thing at once, and we do ourselves a disservice when we start to say, well, you can't put that thing in that because that messes with the tone. I think that is a genuinely great thing to do in comedy, but I also like people slipping and falling over.
In 2022, this mischievous comedy will return to Glyndebourne, starring Jose Fardilla in the title role, Erin Morley as Norina, Hugh Montague Rendell as Malatesta, and Josh Lovell as Ernesto, in a gorgeous 18th century staging full of colour, energy and wit.